Hello everyone, Gears here, and we are back in Meatypack where today I wanted to discuss some of the RF power generation options that I explored while playing. Now, this is my project board, and normally something like this would be a good end cap to a video, but I decided I wanted to start with this because it also illustrates the fact that I have not, even though I've had this pack and had this particular map for quite a while, that I haven't explored all the options and all the things there is to do in the pack. If you'll notice, 3 of the items on here are power generation options that I haven't even got to yet. May not get to them in this pack, may explore them in future packs, perhaps even Yawcraft. But regardless, even with all I've done, there's still plenty to do. Now, the first generation option I wanted to discuss involves this guy, and that is the Survivalist Generator from Extra Utilities. Now, this is a good generator to get in the beginning. Getting 2 or 3 of these set up, it produces a very small amount of power, only 5 RF per tick, but it does so extremely efficiently, and the better the fuel you use, the better the efficiency. Now, the Survivalist Generator burns just about any furnace fuel that you can find in the game, the only exception being the fuels that leave a byproduct, such as a bucket of lava is a furnace fuel, but it leaves a byproduct of an empty bucket. So you can't use that in a survivalist generator. One of the most efficient fuel sources in the game is coal coke. Unfortunately, you can't get coal coke quickly. You get it by burning coal in either an immersive engineering or railcraft coke oven, and it's a slow process. So to get a massive amount, you have to either burn one oven for a long period of time or burn some for a shorter period of time, but in many ovens at once. I built an array of railcraft coke ovens, and they're fed and items retrieved via a interchest network. There's also a piping network in place for stockpiling and removing creosote oil that builds up in the ovens. The coal coke is made and deposited to my AE system, which then exports it to this chest. The auto packager turns them into blocks of coal coke, which are in turn used as fuel for the survivalist generators that I use as my maintenance power source. Now, as stated, the survivalist generator, very small amount of power, but if you craft them to the 64X model, which burns 320 or produces 320 RF per tick, and you create an array of them, that can produce a steady amount of maintenance power. I say maintenance power because obviously it's not good for massive energy draw projects such as quarrying or charging draconium blocks. But for, say, the constant stream of power needed to run an AE system and other machinery around my base, it's perfect for stuff like that. As you can see, I got an array of 14 generators here. And the downside of these generators, actually any extra utilities generator, is that in Minecraft 1.7, there is no direct way of controlling the generators with, say, a redstone signal. You can't switch them on and off as needed. However, with the right setup, you can control fuel distribution to any of the generators, and you can control energy output. Now, I have a switch set up to turn on or off fuel distribution to the generators. I have an emergency shut off here. I also have a remote control set up back at my control center downstairs using an ender chest system. You'll notice that all of these arrays have two ender chest setups. One is for switching purposes. It's just a simple matter of item goes in, sets off the comparator, a comparator which turns off a redstone torch, which allows the system to run. And the other is, of course, a comparator which reads the internal power buffer. And if there is enough power in any of them, it will simply stop fuel distribution by powering the node, or powering up the node to where, once it receives a redstone signal, transfer nodes cannot distribute items to inventories. Now, and that's pretty much for my maintenance power. The other maintenance power setup I have would be my lava generator array, and that's set up kind of interesting. I got two in place, and they're set up to where if they have enough internal power that they activate this latch, which turns off this torch, which allows this liquid transfer node to transfer lava and fuel them. So they only run when needed, and burns it very slowly, very efficiently as a result of this redstone control array. Now, you may notice this redstone distribution chest set up here. That's because this array serves two functions. If I have adequate redstone backlogged in my network, I have two heated redstone generators that I can replace these lava generators with. You see, these lava generators, the 64X models, they produce 2500 RF per tick. But the heated redstone generators, because they're using lava and a solid fuel, they produce double that amount. So depending on my backlog of redstone, I can switch these out and use this array to double my power output if I have adequate redstone. And if not, I can just always switch them back out to the lavas. It uses the exact same array and setup. Now, the major distribution of power, one of the four major arrays that I use for massive power output, one of them would be the 64X TNT generator. And this, if you have done enough exploring, can actually be obtained relatively early to mid-game. Two conditions have to be met for this to do so. And that is, as a chance cube drop, you can get useless generators as they are named in the drop, but they're actually pink generators from extra utilities, and they simply burn anything that's pink. Pink wool, pink dye. If you can mass produce that, which I've not found an effective way of doing so, you can use those as a power source. However, I found that the useless generators actually have they're not quite so useless. They have a very good side effect, and that is, if you have found or crafted an uncrafting table from Twilight Forest, you can break down, with a little bit of experience, you can break down those generators and get the rather expensive hyper energy transfer nodes from them, and use those to build the better higher tier generators. The other thing that has to happen is if you have to have done some exploring and come across from Chocolate Quest an airship or two, one of the airship villages. If you take something like a deep storage unit from MFR and raid the bottoms, the underbelly of those ships where the dispensers are, you can make off with, I believe it's like maybe 7,000 plus TNT per ship. and store them in that unit, and you can get this generator going if you relatively early game in it, and it's wonderful for like early game quarrying. The downside of this particular generator is it does generate explosions as a side effect. The good news is these generators, the explosions don't damage blocks, but they do harm entities and players alike. So that's why I have it so far away from my main base, and why I put the control system in place. The other two items of power or item setups would be my Nether Star generator, which that's in my earlier videos where you saw the automatic wither killing. That's pretty much what this is for. That and Draconic Evolution recipes. This is for massive influxes of RF. I can't remember what this thing tops out at, but it generates per Nether Star. Oh, I cannot remember, but a lot of RF per tick. And the setup array, once again, to only burn the Nether Stars as needed. The same with the Ender Pearl or Ender generators. They run off Ender Pearls or Ender Eyes. And I have a mob farm set up in one chunk of the end, and it generates a steady supply of Ender Pearls along with another mob farm that I have in the Nether that has killed a sufficient number of blazes. You can burn just Ender Pearls in these, but if you can set it up and burn Ender Eyes, they're a little bit better of a fuel source and will net you more RF per tick. The only other power array that I have up here would be this lightning rod from Immersive Engineering. I thought it would be fun to play with. If you're fortunate enough to catch a lightning bolt in a thunderstorm, this can get you a massive jolt of power, but it's rare and very far between that this actually gets hit. This was more or less a hobbyist, I can say I did this type setup. My primary power nowadays runs off this main array here. Now, the other setup that I possess that was instrumental in filling this max tier energy storage unit from Draconic Evolution, that would be my Draconic Reactor. Now, my Draconic Reactor is set up about 500 blocks from my base. The minimum safe distance for a Draconic Reactor is 200 blocks, but I was a little paranoid. Plus, I didn't know what my future build plans were going to consist of. So, you know, if you don't know what your build plans are for your base, definitely locate this guy as far away as possible. Now, you will need an array of energy transceivers and relays to transmit the amount of power that you can get out of these. I fine-tuned it a little bit. I was able to get well over 200,000 RF per tick using this setup, and I was able to implement a relatively simple redstone control mechanism to keep it from exploding. But the reason it's in an off state right now is there's after I filled the orb up, there was no real need to run it, since the other power generation options I have, even when quarrying, keep it relatively full. Well, everyone, that pretty much covers all of my power generation options in playing Meatypack. If there's something that I missed, some critical detail that you'd like to know more about in my power setups, something you'd like to see, or just a comment or some feedback on anything or any of the videos I've done for that matter, you know, feel free to message me via Discord. and take care.